Have you ever noticed how you can stay completely calm during a serious argument? You absorb harsh words, navigate a high-stakes conflict, and somehow maintain complete emotional control. But hours later, a completely trivial inconvenience is enough to trigger a sudden explosion. A misplaced glass, a slightly dismissive tone, or a minor delay occurs, and your reaction suddenly becomes overwhelming. A few seconds later, you think, "Why did I get so angry over that?" And the strange part is that small thing may not have been the real reason you got angry. It was simply the final thing that crocked a pressure cooker that was already completely full. Most of the time, the moment that finally makes you angry isn't a serious argument. Instead, it's a brief text message that reads a bit colder than usual, a passing comment that echoes in your mind for hours, or a colleague casually cutting you off mid-sentence. Logically, you understand the event is completely minor, yet internally, your remaining patience evaporates in a fraction of a second. And the confusing part is that you may even know in that moment that your reaction is bigger than the situation. So why does something so small have the power to affect you that much? Because the size of your reaction does not always come from the size of what happened. You might tell yourself, maybe I just have a short temper, or perhaps you label yourself as an inherently aggressive person. But that superficial diagnosis rarely tells the whole story, because sometimes the thing that made you angry was not really the problem. While the external trigger remains completely minor, your reaction scales to a disproportionate level. That is because the small thing may have only been the trigger. In reality, a reservoir of accumulated fatigue, unvoiced frustrations, and daily pressures was already filling up beneath the surface. And when that small moment happens, it gives all of that pressure somewhere to go. So the real question is not just, why did that little thing make me angry? It is, what was already building inside me before it happened? Imagine spending the entire day under constant pressure. You move from deadlines to messages, urgent requests, and tasks that keep demanding your attention. None of them was enough to make you lose your temper. Then you get home and a family member asks you a simple question in a slightly tired tone. Suddenly, you snap. The question itself was minor, and on a normal day, it probably would not have caused such a strong reaction. But by that point, your mind was already carrying everything that happened before it. The frustration had been building quietly, one small thing at a time. So when that final moment arrived, your reaction was not only about what happened right then, it was also about everything you had been holding in before it. Think about a glass slowly filling with water throughout the day. Each drop seems too small to matter, but once the glass is already full, one final drop is enough to make the water spill over. This matters because it changes the question you ask yourself after you overreact. Instead of focusing only on what happened, you can ask yourself what you had already been carrying before it happened. That question can tell you much more about your anger than the final trigger ever could. Some people can bring out a side of your anger that others never seem to reach. You can hear the same words from two different people, and somehow only one of them gets under your skin. Maybe it is the person who constantly interrupts you, speaks to you in a dismissive tone, or keeps ignoring something you have already asked them to respect. On the surface, their behavior may seem small, but when the pattern continues, it starts to feel personal. Their behavior begins to touch a boundary that already matters to you. For example, imagine you calmly tell someone that you need a little space, but they keep pushing you for an answer. The first time, you might let it go. The second time, you might feel annoyed. But when the same behavior keeps happening, even their simple question can suddenly become frustrating. Not because the question itself is so serious, but because it reminds you of every other time you felt like your boundaries were not being respected. And this is why certain people can bring out emotions that feel far bigger than what they actually said. They may be touching something personal that has been bothering you for much longer than you realize. Sometimes the strongest reaction is not about who is standing in front of you, it's about what their behavior reminds you of. There is a deeper question behind the moments that make you angry. Sometimes your anger is not only about what someone did to you. It can also come from what you believe their actions say about you. Maybe someone ignores your message and you start feeling like you do not matter to them. Maybe someone criticizes your work and suddenly it feels like they're questioning your ability. Or maybe someone makes a decision without asking you, and you start feeling like your voice doesn't matter. The event itself may be small, but the meaning behind it can change how you experience it. This is why two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away feeling completely different. One person sees a rude comment and moves on. Another person keeps thinking about it for the rest of the day. The difference may not be what happened, it may be what that moment meant to them. And that is where your anger can reveal something you were not even aware you were protecting. There's a bigger truth sitting underneath everything you've just recognized. A small thing never comes with a guarantee about how small your reaction will be. The size of what happens and the size of what you feel are not actually connected the way you might assume, because your reaction was never only about that one moment. It was shaped by everything you were already holding before that moment arrived. The tiredness you hadn't rested from, the words you hadn't said out loud, and the frustration you'd been quietly managing for hours or even days, all sitting there without you really noticing it build. None of that shows up until something small gives it a place to go. So the next time you catch yourself reacting harder than the situation seemed to deserve, the question worth asking isn't what was wrong with you in that moment, it's what you had already been carrying long before that moment ever happened. So, what do you actually do with this the next time it happens? Not the usual advice about staying calm or counting to 10 before you respond. Instead, in that moment, right before you react, you pause on three simple questions. What actually happened? Not what it felt like, not what it meant, just the plain literal fact of what someone did or said. Then, what did you feel? Not the anger itself, but the emotion sitting right underneath it. Whether that's feeling dismissed, ignored, disrespected, or simply overwhelmed. And finally, what did you think it meant? Because most of the time, what actually triggers the size of your reaction isn't the event itself. It's the meaning your mind quietly attached to it. Separating those three things, the event, the feeling, and the meaning you gave it, doesn't make the reaction disappear, but it gives you something you didn't have in the moment before. A half second of space between what happened and how you respond to it. And that half second is usually where the difference actually lives. None of this means you're just an angry person. It means there's a version of you that's been carrying more than anyone around you realizes, including most of the time you. You've been holding things together, staying composed, managing everything you were supposed to manage, and somewhere in all of that, a few things never really got the space to be felt. That's not a flaw. That's just what happens when you carry more than you let yourself notice. And the moment you start noticing your own pattern, something quietly shifts. Not because the anger disappears, but because you're no longer just reacting to it. You're finally looking at it. Has something small ever set you off more than it probably should have? Share what it was and what you think was really going on underneath it. And if you want to keep understanding the hidden patterns behind everyday behavior, stay connected, because sometimes the smallest things people do reveal something much deeper about the way their mind actually works.